Hello and welcome to another episode of the MenswearStyle Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Brooker. How are we doing? On this episode, I'm going to be talking to Alexander Walsh, the co-founder and chief financial officer of JustWears. Now, JustWears, you may have already seen, they've been featured on BBC Dragon's Den. They got an offer, turned it down. We're going to get into that story. And Alexander's going to take us behind the scenes of what it's like to be on Dragon's Den, which was fascinating for me. But a little bit about JustWears before we do. JustWears, they're out there, man. They're on a mission to reinvent men's basics using premium, sustainably sourced fabrics and ergonomic designs. Since running the most backed apparel campaign on Kickstarter in the UK, they've sold over 40,000 pairs to 10,000 customers in 70 plus countries, and boy, those numbers might even be old. I'm sure those have gone up since. So stay tuned, that interview to come. Before we get into that, head over to menswearstyle.co.uk. That's where we'll put all the show notes and the links for everything that we talk about here, as well as some travel features, trending news, and competitions where you can win some good stuff. That's menswearstyle.co.uk, and you can type that into your smartphone on your social and follow us over there. If you want to get in touch with the show, maybe tell us about your journey, your brand, how you're dealing in these times, then email us at info@menswearstyle.co.uk. Okay? Here we go. Here's that interview with Alexander Walsh, co-founder and CFO of JustWears. Well, it's my great pleasure to introduce to the podcast Alexander Walsh, CFO and co-founder of JustWears. How are we doing today, Alexander?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me on, Peter.
It's a great pleasure to talk to you, and thanks again for taking time out of your day. Maybe I can ask you for a little bit about you, your backstory, and if you can give me the journey of JustWears, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, sure. So JustWears is essentially innovating men's basics in a category that's really been lacking, which is men's underwear. If you think about this industry, for a long period of time, there's been very little innovation, and most brands out there are really out of touch with the modern consumer. I mean, you can think about whether it be Calvin Klein, Hugo Boss, 2Exist. I mean, you can go down the line, and pretty much all the brands out there have really put together an offering that I think is trying to oversell sex and just doesn't really connect with the modern day consumer. So we've launched, a brand that's significantly better, and products that are really look to aim to solve functional problems using really premium fabrics and ergonomic designs. So yeah, that's JustWears.
Yeah, and maybe just a little bit about you. So how did you start, your background, and how old is the brand as well?
We've been around. So we initially launched the brand in 2017 as more or less a test trial. We had this idea, I'd say back in 2016, 2017, and we figured, why don't we put it up on crowdfunding or Kickstarter and see if people would actually be interested in this? We were really surprised and quite pleased with the response that we got. I mean, we were actually overwhelmed with the amount of orders. We had, within the first 30 days, over 2,000 orders, and ended up becoming the most backed apparel project in the UK on Kickstarter. From there, we shipped out a bunch of product, and just had a ton of people saying they absolutely loved it and were coming back for more. And so that kind of gave us a big enough signal to say, yeah, let's build this into a business and take off from there. So we launched our website in basically late 2018 and have been scaling the business for the past year and a half.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't tell you the amount of countless campaigns that I've tried to get off the ground, projects through Kickstarter, crowdfunding. I mean, what was your secret recipe? What was it that captured the imagination, do you think?
Well, I think we were touching into something that, people, agreed with and were looking for. So before we even did Kickstarter, we went out and just talked to men and just said, hey, how do you feel about the brands that you wear? How do you feel about, and we did this across a lot of different product categories. So everything from shoes to watches to shirts to trousers. We just went out and had hundreds and hundreds of conversations. And I would say the most interesting thing that came back was, really in the underwear space, all the existing brands were really out of touch. And I mean, I personally found that my underwear collection, which was largely, composed of Calvin Klein, was pretty cheaply made. I think overpriced, and also just, I mean, I previously worked in finance, so when you're sitting at your desk for 13 hours a day, just can get really uncomfortable. And so we consistently found that as we talked to more and more men. And so I think when we launched a solution to that, right off the bat, that kind of connected with something that like people weren't really out there speaking about, but when they saw it, they said, yeah, okay, that's something that I want. And so I think it was really just kind of coming up with and doing a lot of research before we ended up launching. We probably worked on the project for 9 months before getting to launch. And I think that sort of background research of really understanding our customers and understanding, who would potentially buy this and why would they buy it, I think really helped to get it off the ground when we started.
Alex, can you help me out with something? When you say research and you go out and you ask people, do you mind drilling down on that a little bit? Because I've been told the same thing. If I've got an idea, well, you need to go out, you need to do some surveys, you need to get, some firsthand research. What do people actually want? How do you go about getting these research? How do you go about asking people?
Well, I mean, that comes back to like one of our core principles at JustWears is be humble, but have balls. And what we mean by that is, have the confidence and willingness just to go out and try something, whether that's talk to the girl at the bar or it's go, sitting next to someone on the train and just ask them about their underwear. Like literally there were situations like that where we would ask strangers, friends, family. Essentially, we had kind of a list of package questions and whatever situation we were in, we could be at the bar, we could be at a party. We would just run through them with people. And that led to a lot of really interesting and pretty funny conversations. Right. And then we would just kind of tag them down, put them in a big spreadsheet, and then, have some conversations about them in the early days.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's it. That's going out and actually talking to people and getting those first-hand stories. And it's a great icebreaker as well, isn't it? I think.
I'm sure you come up with better icebreakers than asking.
Yeah. Well, it's a different one anyway. When we spoke off air just before we put the mics on, we talked about brand loyalty, and I think how guys especially are just so kind of one-track mind when it comes to a brand. I mean, they might not even, like you say, they might not even really like the pants they're wearing, but because it's got the brand on the elastane there, it's kind of synced in almost by osmosis that these will fit me. These will be like every other garment that I own with the brand, and it will serve me that same purpose. But it's really not the case with pants, isn't it? They fall off the cliff there.
Well, actually, that was probably one of the most interesting things that came out of our conversations. After speaking to 200, 300 men, we found out that men on average only own 2 brands of underwear. And so what was interesting about that is, essentially it says that men are out there, once they find something that's good, we want to have kind of consistency and we want to stick with it. But what was really interesting is when we asked people, okay, if you're sticking with the same brand, how do you feel about that brand? How do you feel connected with this brand? Do you really like it? How involved do you feel with, whether it be Calvin Klein, Hugo Boss, whatever their brand was, we would ask them this. And on a scale from 1 to 10, we found that most men would put down a 4 or 3 or a 4 out of, how connected do they feel with that brand. And that was really, really interesting because this was a space where you could say, okay, there are very high repeat rates. So there's very high brand loyalty, but actually very low brand affinity. And so it's really something that people buy out of convenience and out of consistency. And so if you can then, disrupt that space with, a significantly better offering at a reasonable value, then you can collect or basically get a lot of people on board in the early days who are then going to come back to you and buy a second time and third time and fourth time. And really focusing on the product, we actually found that held true. In our first year and a half, 2 years, we've had repeat rates, well north of 40%. And that's just been absolutely phenomenal. Just how much people are willing to kind of come, like once they decide, yeah, okay, JustWears is way better than anything I've ever worn. Now I'm going to clear out my entire underwear drawer and come back and buy them 4 or 5 times to basically replace my underwear drawer with this because it's that much better.
Yeah.
That's been something that's really blown us away. And, to see that like level of customer loyalty has been really cool.
And it is strange how guys are wired this way. And I think when it comes to brands, I mean, I'm not excluding myself from this group, by the way. If I have a shirt from a brand or a pair of trousers from a brand, I will then look for other things within their kind of ecosphere that I can buy. And I often find where they often fall down is in watches, where they kind of go, right, now's the time to launch a watch because we've nailed every other market. And then the watch comes out and it's horrible. Most of the time it's also perfume, but then the pants as well. You're so right with some of the pants that I've bought over the years that I've bought just because of an affinity with a brand. Well,
that was what was so interesting about this is you see so many of these brands that don't have anything to do with pants. Like they're not specialists in the space. They just decide to launch it as some other thing to add to their category. And what happens is they basically go to China, they would take some white label products, they put their logo on it, and that becomes, what they sell. And it's just very cheaply made, and either falls apart or just doesn't fit well. So, when we go out there and we do 30, 40 iterations of the product before we launch our first prototype, that I think came through. And then after that, we're very much a brand that, has one of the wonderful things about being an online brand is you can have a two-way, dialogue with your customers that you can't have in store. If someone walks into the store, they take something off the shelf, and they leave, 1, you don't know who that person is. 2, you don't know how they felt about it. 3, they might have a lot of ideas that you just don't know. But when you're an online brand like us, what's been awesome is a lot of people who try the brand, will then be in touch with us on email, comments, social media, other platforms, where we can collect a lot of information and data that tells us, hey, in this particular size, it would be better fitting if we added a little bit more space to the crotch area, or if we change the waistband composure to be softer, or a bit more rigid so it doesn't fold over. Like all these sorts of things are feedback that we can gather very quickly, and then we can iterate, very much more faster than like some big company that has all this product in store. So within 2-3 months of getting that feedback, we can then put that to work, change the product, and then launch a JustWears 2.0, 3.0. We've now done 3 different, kind of not major reworks, but they were pretty significant reworks of the product, of things that we felt like we could improve. And honestly, I think, what we serve today is significantly better than what's out there. But compared to what could be done, when you think about all the features and benefits, and it's funny when you think about pants, you don't really think about features and benefits, but once you really start getting into it, there's a lot of things that could be done in the optimal perfect pair of underwear, which, are still yet to come. So that's kind of where we're at. And I think we're one of the, I would argue that we're probably the only company out there that's really thinking about it this way.
That's awesome. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the fabric that's used. So it's sustainable beech tree, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we had traveled to a lot of different conferences, gone across 3 different continents, essentially just sampling different types of fabric, everything from cotton to different types of linen to bamboo. And in that process, we found this fabric that was actually made from beech tree fibers, which was significantly softer than cotton, about 3 times softer, antimicrobial, and it just breathed a lot better than a lot of the products that we found. And also, one of the things that we care a lot about at JustWears is sustainability. And when we found out that this actually uses 10 times less water and about 20 times less land to produce than cotton, and cotton's a very problematic crop, we really started to explore it. And the more we explored it, the more we liked it. And ultimately, that was what we ended up launching with. So our products are made from, beech tree fibers, which are, it sounds funny that, your underwear is made out of wood, but it is actually a lot more comfortable than I would say cotton underwear.
Well, there's a lot of great zingers on the website, by the way. The phallus for your palace is one of the best, I think, that I've heard. And and you
I
can
think it's
head.
Palace for your phallus, but yeah, that's right.
Oh, did I screw that up? What did I say?
All right. Either Palace or Palace for your phallus. Either way. Oh yeah, we've got a bunch of them.
It's a really fun place to go. You should just-wears.com, by the way. We'll leave a link in the show notes. And there's also a great story of you going on Dragon's Den. Would you mind recounting that for us as well?
Yeah. So, well, first off, with the brand, I think what's interesting, when you really start to think about this shift from bricks to clicks, the offering essentially needs to change if you're thinking about, okay, what is going to get in front of people? Because what you think about, if you're on the high street, let's take the 70 stores that are on the high street. If you essentially get one of those stores, put a nice storefront up, enough people are going to walk by, they're going to stroll into your store and pick some stuff up, potentially buy it. And that's, how a lot of businesses have built their business. But when you build a brand completely online, you could build the most pretty store in the world, and nobody's going to find it in the vast expenses of the internet. So you really need to come into an industry with a very differentiated point of view and get out there and really spread that message either through social media or through some other platform. And so I think with that, with us, we really focus on, okay, how can we make really great products that actually are functional? But then with our brand, it's, okay, how can we tell a story or have fun that is true to our core values of be humble but have balls, and that delivers comfort, confidence, and fun. And what we found is that humor ends up being the best thing. And so a lot of what we put out there is just kind of having fun with our customers. And even some of these slogans that you mentioned, many of them have come from customer ideas. Like, we run pun competitions sometimes where we give away a free product. We ran one over Christmas where we ran a pun competition with our existing customers, where people got to submit their favorite holiday pun related to underwear or balls or JustWears. And
So cool.
then we selected the top 2 or 3 and we gave them a free set. And then we'd use those puns to then basically create our Christmas gift packaging. And so, the best ones were take care of your North Pole this holiday season.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And then I think the winner was show Santa how to carry a sack with style.
Oh, there you go. That's great.
Yeah.
You've got your own writing team now. They're all just chipping in with these, and then you can just reward them with some pounds. That's great.
Exactly. And that's what it means when you can build a brand that is more engaging and focuses on building kind of a community. And so that's kind of, what I meant on that front. And then I think you were mentioning Dragon's Den. So I think when you're putting out a lot of this, interesting content online, the nice thing about that is it brings in other opportunities. And so about a year ago, we randomly got an email from some producer that said, hey, we're with the BBC, and we're looking for companies to come on Dragon's Den. We thought your ads were really funny. We would love to have you on. And when I saw that, I actually thought, I didn't think Dragon's Den did this. And I thought it was a scam. So I kind of ignored it for probably about 3 weeks until I eventually said, okay, why don't we just see where this goes? Mm-hmm. So I responded, came back to him, and it turned out to be very real. And then over the course of the next 3 to 4 months of auditioning and everything, we got through and eventually got into the show. And so, yeah, it was really cool. I mean, you essentially go up to Manchester, you film the whole thing with the Dragons, and negotiate an offer. And we were really lucky to get a couple offers. And so I think that just that experience is just such a cool, story to
yeah. So were you in a position when they came to you, were you in a position where you were thinking about getting extra investment, or was the business already showing a good trajectory where you didn't need anything like this?
Well, I would hope if you're raising investment, the business is already showing a good trajectory. I mean, the right type of investment raising is when you're on a good trajectory and you need a bit more rocket fuel to kind of take it to the next level.
Right.
So yes, we were looking for investment, and it just so happened that they reached out at the right time, and so we said, yeah, we would love to be on. The issue with not the issue, but I would say, so one of the things that we noticed from the show is that I would say we tend to over prepare for everything.
I love this. I love this story. Yeah, please tell.
Yeah. So before we even went in, I had watched the past 3 or 4 years of Dragon's Den, like literally with a spreadsheet up, and then we recorded every single company that was in there. What was the company? What did they go in for? What valuation did they pitch? What was their revenue? And then what offers did they, like, did they get an offer? Yes, no, and if not, why? And then what was the valuation of their offer? And after doing that and collecting data on 150 different companies that have been on the show, we realized that the median pre-money valuation for a Dragon's Den company is about £145,000. Now, in the world of angel and venture capital, that is quite low, and oftentimes can actually be quite hurtful to a company, because if you give away, let's say, 30 or 40% of the business when you're at a very early stage, there are some situations where that can really, really help. And there are some situations where that can actually make it very difficult to raise more funding, which you're probably going to need down the road.
Right.
So we kind of, we had an obligation to our investors, because we did have some existing investors by that point, to go in, at a valuation that was both fair to them, but that also, would encourage Dragon to come on board. And we came pretty close, I would say, but ultimately in the end, there was just a little distance between where they wanted and what we felt like was fair to our existing investors. And yeah, I mean, moral of the story is actually, we were really, really fortunate to bring on this new, I would call them a new age of dragons, kind of like a bunch of influencers that are also doing investment at a meaningfully better valuation, I would say.
Right. So, I mean, were you thinking of a particular dragon in mind when you went in there and be like, oh, I hope we get him, or I hope she puts an offer in?
Yeah, I mean, I love the show, and I would have loved to have all of them. Yeah, I think Touker Suleyman is a great one in terms of his background in retail.
Mm-hmm.
If we ever wanted to then move into getting into stores, he would be a really, really good person for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Tej Lavani is just so smart, and he really understands brands and branding. So those were the guys that I think we really targeted going in. And it turns out, when we were in the den, those were actually the two guys that came through with offers.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Matt. That's so cool. I mean, it's such an interesting show as well. I mean, I'm hooked on that show, and I always feel like the people that go in there that don't get the investment are one or two people that go, well, look, we appreciate the offer, but like you say, it's not what we came in for. It's a little bit below our estimations. Or the ones that just don't get the investment anyway are the ones that hadn't prepared, that they didn't get the numbers right, and that really, really infuriates the dragons when they kind of overestimate what their net return might be, or whatever it might be. If you screw up on the data and the initial research and the numbers, then you can almost see them mentally, they're ejecting out of the process, aren't they?
So my favorite moment from that, which actually didn't make it onto TV, and there's actually a lot of moments, because we were in front of the dragons, on camera, with makeup on and everything. Actually, the first time I ever wore makeup in my life. But we were in there for about 2 hours, pitching the dragons and then negotiating with them. And my favorite part of the whole segment, which didn't actually get in there, was there was a moment where Peter Jones. So we had placed a banana. Essentially, one of our core features is a pouch for your member that gives you more space and more support, and that actually has some ventilated materials on the underside to keep your balls cool. But we had flipped one of the pairs inside out. We had put a banana into the pouch to demonstrate the feature. And so during this time, and we also had given some pairs to each of the dragons, which we thought, were as gifts because we got their sizes from the editors. And so in one part, Peter Jones goes, I really like the product. I really like the fabric. The branding is quite cool. And he goes, but the pouch. He goes, it's awfully large, isn't it? And he goes, and that's an awfully big banana you used in there. Isn't that just going to alienate some men? And so, firstly, when I'm thinking about something to say, before I can even say anything, my wife and CEO, who you can imagine is about a 5 foot tall, Chinese woman, initially fires back, immediately, is that a bad thing? And he goes, no, it's not a bad thing. If someone has a small wiener, it could be. And then so her next response was even better, where she said, oh, that's okay, Peter. If we got your size wrong, we can change it out after the show. And the entire place just started cracking up laughing. I really hoped I was going to get in. But I guess they didn't. They it's a family show, so they didn't want to.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to give away the fact that he might have some misgivings down there, right? So he doesn't want to ruin that reputation. I mean, the guy's about 7 foot tall, and he's.
I know. So, but we had a lot of fun with them, and we kept in touch afterwards. And actually, so Tej Lavani had given us the best offer in the den. His team had come back about a month later to actually improve the offer to where we were at the time. And we definitely would have taken him up on that. But at the same time, we had this other group that actually had already invested right around the same time at an even better situation or valuation.
Right. That's fascinating. Yeah, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that was a thing, that they can come back to you later down the road and go, hey, it was great seeing you on the show. I've had another rethink and you're right. I'm going to meet you at your price. Or I just didn't know that sort of thing happens later down the track.
I didn't know it either. I was really shocked by it because he had come in asking for 4 or 5%. They had countered at 20, and we had asked them if they could come to 10 in the show, and they said no. Right. And then, about a month later, they actually said, no, we thought about it and we could do 10. And that was what really shocked me.
And the lift isn't real either, I've heard, right? It's just a waiting room of sorts.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I hate to demystify that for people, but it's it's just enough. Well, I mean, it really takes some balls, pardon the pun, to get on a show like that, because you're really exposing everything, aren't you? I mean, also you hired, was it acting coaches? I read on your blog, you had all these sort of different things that were going on ahead of time, because I guess you just wanted to get everything so well prepared, so it wouldn't be for the lack of preparation the reason why you wouldn't get a deal or an offer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing to go on TV. I mean, we're not TV personalities or influencers. We're normal people that are trying to build a great company. And so when you get invited to go on to something like that, I feel like you need to prepare. So whether that's an acting coach or something, doing the research, knowing your numbers, all that sort of stuff, like we take to heart, because the last thing we want to do is show up to seem like we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. And also, you don't know what the narrative is going to be, right? Because they can, like you say, they can edit it in any way they like. Like any kind of reality show, they can kind of make it look like how they want to make it look. So it's out of your hands to a certain extent, isn't it?
Of course, but I think as a company, you need to accept that. So I think, it's their TV show at the end of the day. And you're going on there to provide them some great content. Hopefully you have some fun doing it. And hopefully, you get some laughs out of it. And I think that's the kind of the mentality that we went in. Of course, it would be amazing to get investment at the valuation you'd like. It doesn't always happen. And you just kind of got to roll with it. Since then, I mean, it's been great exposure. We actually did end up getting investment so one of the things that we did was we just reached out to all the most successful campaigns that have been on the show. Just to ask them to be our mock dragons as we prepared. And we did end up getting investment from one of the most successful companies that have been on there, which is a company called Look After My Bills. So that founder had pretty much mentored us and coached us through that time period. And after we had done the show, said, I really like you guys. I would like to invest in you and be part of this journey. And so since then, he's given us incredible insight and advice as to how to build a business, how to think about marketing, how to think about hiring, how to think about so many different features that as a young entrepreneur, you just don't have the experience or skill set yet.
Yeah.
And so since, although we didn't get an investment in Dragon's Den, I think by bringing the right type of people around our business, it's really helped take us to the next level. I would say from the time that we went on the show to now, we've probably increased the business by 4 or 5x. And yeah, I think it just goes to show what you can achieve when you kind of have the right mentors around you who can teach you the right things.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, mate. It looks brilliant online. The website looks fantastic. The product looks great. So what's next for the brand? What are you working on at the moment to bring the brand to 5x?
Yeah, so our mission is to reinvent all of men's basics. We see this as not just to start, we're beginning with underwear, but for us, we really look at things like undershirts and socks, and we think creatively about, okay, how can we introduce an innovative undershirt that has really premium materials and that has either ventilated or padded fabrics in the underarms or other areas that would prevent, sweat from staining your shirts. Because I'll be honest, my dress shirts over a certain period of time are pretty much all stained. And, we think about socks as well, where, if you could develop with the kind of the latest in textile technology, you can develop socks that won't smell and that will fit properly. So all these sorts of things. And then with our existing products, we're rolling out a lot of different styles, as well as trunks, briefs, as well as innovating the styles that we have. So, our most popular product has been the boxer brief with the pouch, because it's a really kind of interesting and innovative design that other companies aren't offering. But then we look at that and say, okay, how can we do that better and more interestingly, and something that serves the purpose of people out there? It could be looking at putting stiffer fabrics into the legs to prevent them from riding up, which we've already adjusted the style to prevent from riding up, but it's how can we take that further? It could be, putting small foam inserts into the tip of the pouch to prevent from, and this is going to sound funny, but post pee drip. Because like you're on a date, right, and you use the loo, and then you come walking back all confident. Your girlfriend or wife.
Please hurry up with that design. Yeah.
Because I've definitely had that situation. And so these are things that I think Calvin Klein is definitely not thinking about. And I think most companies just, they're small problems that companies don't want to bother themselves with. But if you actually talk to people, there's lots of different things you can do with these products. And that's really where we're going with it. We want to be one of the most innovative companies in what's otherwise a very boring and uninnovative space.
Well, Alex, you have my number. Please send me a text when that goes straight online, because for that very reason, that I don't wear stone denim. I have to wear dark jeans, because you never know when those sort of things happen. And it's all the things that kind of weirdly affects your psyche and confidence when you are in public and you don't ever tell anyone. And it's much needed in the Brooker household, I can tell you that. So Alex, just-wears.com is the place to go, and people can enjoy the website, they can enjoy the products, and on the social as well, on the Facebook and on the Twitter. All the links can be found through the website. Alex, thanks so much for taking time out to speak to me today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
And best of luck with the product, and look forward to seeing some more designs.
Cheers. Yeah, have a great day.
Excellent.
All right, bye.
Alexander Walsh there. Thank you, Alexander. Remember the website, just-wears.com. That's the place to go. Why not stock up on some really nice boxer briefs, a palace for your phallus. Doesn't get any better than that. In the meantime, look, thank you everyone for sharing. There's a lot of podcasts out there, so appreciate you taking the time out to listen to this. And if you're liking what you're hearing, then just leave a little review in your old smartphone there. And until next time, remember, it's only fashion, people. And you're never fully dressed without a smile.